Following program are those of the speakers and the host and do not necessarily reflect those of Yoakley Scott Corporation and your sports network.
Yeah, I've been closer to Jesus before, so can you help me out? Oh, can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Can you help me out? I've been scared to look in my soul. I've been afraid I would follow the road. Yeah, afraid of the things I've been told.
Hello, everybody. Welcome inside a Monday episode of Running Point on YSNLive.com, brought to you as always by our good friends over at Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Anthony Harwig alongside Ty Bartell. Oh, man.
Joining the party late, brother. Get you on the right side of the screen, not the left side.
Ty's like, first come, first serve. Now that we don't have
Sorry, it's like the rules. It's like me and my wife when we fight over who gets what side of the bed when you sleep.
Yeah, like you guys swap.
We have
talk to
only
most-
once, but I mean this is pretty lined up. I'm
Most
usually
people, it's like I'm on this side. I need to lay on this side of the bed.
I'm on the right side just because there's a nightstand on the right side, and I like my nightstand.
I like my thing.
so
Well,
to get in-depth personal life, I guess, for a minute. I'm
yeah,
on the
in
right side of
depth.
the
I like
screen.
nightstands. That's real in depth.
Yeah.
We have a fun show today. We're going to recap all the weekend's action. A lot of really interesting stuff coming out with the scores from football and some pretty interesting scores coming out of volleyball over the weekend and soccer as well. We'll have all of that. We have power rankings out for volleyball for the first week and week 3 of the power rankings in football after week two's matchup. So we have all that to talk about. Recaps, power rankings. It's going to be a fun show.
Yeah, we're excited for it. It's always Monday. We have to unpack everything that happened over the weekend and on Friday night. Didn't really have much time to talk about it outside of the scoreboard show, but yeah, we got a lot to talk about that happened over the weekend.
Okay, let's turn back the clocks, all the way to Friday, and let's go over these game scores. We will start on Friday with one. We had a plethora of really competitive games, close scores. 14-13, McDonald gets the win over Columbiana. Clippers are still looking for Coach Spates. I almost said Higgins. Rhymes. Coach Spates' 500th win of his career. They are robbed of it with a 14-13 loss to McDonald. They had a couple of chances, some execution errors down the stretch, and McDonald walked away with a 14-13 win. We knew this game was going to be good. It was one of our games that we highlighted on Friday. This is going to be really competitive. And McDonald kind of came in and got the win.
Yeah, and I mean, it kind of game against my expectations again. I thought, too, for sure that Columbiana was getting that victory. I think I called him in a close one, too. But McDonald, I mean, showcasing once again why they've been one of the tops in that MVACC Scarlet tier and why they've been one of the best of the small schools as far as football is concerned in the area for the last few years because of their ability to bounce back after bad losses, too. And I mean, talk about taking it on your chin against Southern a week prior and then just coming out, locking things down, figuring stuff out. But that's like what McDonald does in all sports. We've seen it in other seasons last year too. And their teams, boys and girls, they're resilient and they know how to bounce back, especially as the season goes on.
It's funny how this McDonald-Columbiana game is always good no matter what sport it is.
It really
it's
is.
a good game. It's like whatever. What people didn't talk too much about this game going into it is the coaching matchup. I mean, the two really tenured coaches that have a lot of success with Coach Spate and Coach Williams on McDonald's side. Obviously, both coaches know how to win. They've had multiple winning seasons. It was fun to see those two go at it kind of strategically. And I say draw from a coaching standpoint.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I mean, the score was close enough too that it's pretty much, it was close to a draw on the.
Getting a call from Bloomberg Eve, Youngstown, Ohio. You think I should answer it?
It's probably
is Bloom. Gonna say no. Gonna say leave a voicemail if it's important.
All
right, back to McDonald. Yeah, two really good coaches that's going at it. And I thought coaching wise, pretty even. 14-13 means no coach really took a one step over the other.
No, and I don't think either team really. This was really anyone's game, and I think if you played this game 100 times, you might see 50 victories for each side, honestly. So I think at the end of the day, it was just a good football game, and it just fell in McDonald's favor.
And sometimes the ball bounces your way, and Columbiana, they were driving. You never see this from them. They're usually a really tight-knit team, but one snap goes over the quarterback's head, it completely ruins the drive, and that kind of bounced McDonald's way, and that was the end of that.
There's certain cases like that too, where one mistake can get magnified in a whole game. Like you said,
that's what I hate. Like everyone's gonna look at that game and be like, "That play lost us the game." It's like, well, no, you were still in that situation. It was still 14-13. It was still the end of the game, so you had plenty of other drives and situations where you could have scored. So that play gets magnified because of when it happened, but.
The only thing you could look at that too and try to correct too is just don't have mental lapses late in games too. Is just stay focused through 4 quarters. And I mean, sometimes that can happen through a stretch of a long game. You got to remember these are kids too. It's hard to stay focused up for every single play, every single second on that field too. Sometimes a small lapse in the mental capacity, I guess, for a game too, it can cause those kind of errors.
I don't think that mistake will ever happen again. I think.
Oh, I'm sure they're going to make sure that it doesn't. Right? They're going to.
It's going to be once in a season kind of oops, and next time Columbiana will just have to finish that drive.
As long as you
they will get their wins this year, and Coach Spade will get his 500th win, no doubt.
Yeah, I think so as well. And you know what? There's going to be plenty of things to talk about going into week 3, but there's still a lot of good things to take away from week 2 as well.
Ty, how about Mr. Vinny Ballone just putting on a show? He did exactly what he did last week, 7 total touchdowns, 6 of them through the air. So now his season total after week 2 is 14 total touchdowns.
He saw someone else was leading that MVAC.
Yeah, he's like, wait.
He's like, wait a minute. Allow me to reintroduce myself. And then he did it a second week in a row, and Vinny Ballone really just putting up some impressive performances too, week to week. Hard to see anyone too, especially with what we've seen from the Tigers the last couple of weeks. It's tough to see if anyone's going to be able to beat them. I can't wait for week 4, man. It's going to be fun to see who's if there's a new king.
50-14, Lowville gets the win over Campbell. And you said, like, right now, everyone's looking at Springfield, they're struggling, and Lowville and saying, all right, it's everything we thought might happen is happening now. It's Lowville's year, but I'm telling you, I think something in Springfield's going to click when the league play turns on. Don't think it's going to be a walkthrough for Lowville. Let's not write it in stone yet. I think Lowville has a chance. I think they're going to play really well in that game, and they're going to go and give it their all. But I'm not hitting the panic button on Springfield yet.
I mean, this was a game too. We got to remember that a year ago when Springfield and Lowville matched up in week 4, this is going to be next week now, not this upcoming Friday, but next Friday, that Springfield took it to Lowville. Absolutely took it to Lowville. Now I get,
and you still wonder, like they lost not just Bo Barnard, they lost
a lot. Yeah,
you wonder if they lost 35 points worth of players.
That's the biggest question too, because at the end of the day, you got to look at it too. Lowville's bringing back a lot, but the one area that Springfield really was just dominant against the Rockets from last year, from what I can remember, line play. Their size,
especially on defense, they gave Vinny Ballone problems. They made him play street ball, made him get off his pocket, and they were on him real quick. The offensive line of Lowville couldn't stop the defensive line of Springfield.
And the Tigers don't care really what happens in this conference game. If they come out week 4 or in these non-conference games, they come out week 4 and they get a big win over the team that's already kind of getting the crown placed on them
Yeah.
as conference champions.
I know this is week 4. We're getting ahead of ourselves by talking about this matchup. But here's one of the things that I have to look for. Last year, in the secondary, Springfield had the athletes to take those chances and maybe send an extra guy for a blitz or try to get Vinny Blown pressure. I don't know if you trust your secondary as much as you used to. A lot of those guys are gone. A lot of those athletes are gone in the secondary. A lot of people talk about Bo Brungard's impact as a quarterback, but he also had the impact on the defense in the secondary. So you just wonder if Coach Guerrero will still take those chances to try to put pressure on Vinny Blown. I think at the end of the day, you have to. You can't let him stand back there. So
Well, right now, I mean, it's pretty similar the first 2 weeks. Springfield lost to South Range in a similar fashion in last year's contest. In last year's contest against Brookfield, it was a close game. Springfield, in all reality, probably should have dropped that one, but the talent they had with Bo Brungard, they had enough talent to get them out of that one, 14-13 with the victory last year.
The only difference is this year, Brookfield put the pedal to the metal.
Exactly. Brookfield knew what they needed to do, and they never let up on it, too. This week 3 game is what it was last year, is where Springfield really established themselves and reinvented, I guess, themselves for that season and re-identified themselves as top dogs before league play started. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Geneva just came off of a big win against Struthers, too, and we were not expecting that at all, too. And Geneva, they're going to be rolling going into this one. We'll see if the Tigers can pull off a victory and get a little bit of momentum before league.
It's funny, we talked about this last week. Last year, the Tigers were replacing an offensive line, and they had to figure that out. It took them about 2 weeks. Now they're replacing a lot of skill position players. Does it take them 2 weeks to figure that out? Do they come back week 3 and say, all right, here's what we are, here's what our identity is, and here's how we win games? You just got to find new ways to win games if you're Springfield. And for Lowville, they will go into next week. They have a game that was originally, their originally scheduled game got canceled. They are actually going to travel. Hold on, I have to get to what this team name is, because it was someone that kind of came out of, I don't want to say came out of left field, but it wasn't someone that I had ever heard of. Lowville is going to travel to South Central in week 3.
I feel is it like, what's the town name? Is it like with a C or no?
You want me to Google it?
I don't know why. I feel like, is it like Cadiz or something like that? I feel like it's something like that, Ohio. I could be wrong. It's something like with a C, I thought.
South Central High School is in Greenwich, Ohio.
Nope, that's not at all where I was thinking.
Over, if this is the one, which I don't think, I can't find any ones that are even closer than this, it's going to be an over 2-hour drive for Lowville. So it's a trek.
Getting some bus work in, though, are the Rockets. And you know what?
If you're looking for an opponent, you'll take whatever you can get at this point, right?
Absolutely. So, and also, these bus trips are also kind of good in the middle of the season, especially if you want to make those kind of playoff runs. You need to get kind of used to having that long trip going to a game to kind of mentally prepare yourself prior to a match.
It can bond the team a little bit in some of those, chemistry activities, and a lot of teams kind of find ways to come closer together in long bus rides. You never know. Hubbard gets the win as we move on with our recaps, 8-3 in a straight up old school defensive rivalry with Greenville. Now, I will say that when I saw this game on our schedule last week, I didn't know there were 2 different Greenvilles. I didn't know there was one in PA and then obviously the one in Ohio that Ysn kind of pulled the rabbit out of their hat to beat in the playoffs. I thought that's who Hubbard was playing, and I was like, this is going to be a big test for Hubbard. Turns out they were actually playing Greenville, Pennsylvania. Not the same. So, still a good win, but not who I thought they were playing. 2 different Greenvilles.
But it is a good win nonetheless for Struthers Hubbard. For 2 weeks in a row now, the Eagles get some really solid defensive play to get them a victory.
At the end of the day, Hubbard is 2-0. They found ways to win.
Exactly. And I mean, this is what the Eagles have done, though. I mean, for as long as you remember, and Hubbard's always had a solid football program. They always find ways to get winning seasons at the bare minimum. They always find ways to win. And it's because of games like this. They know how to lock down on defense. And if anything, year to year, Hubbard's always tough to score on.
They are well on their way, and they looked impressive. They'll try to end their non-conference schedule next week with a win as well to go into NE8 play in week 4. Ursuline, well, they were, how do you say it? They were just impressive. I mean, this is a Padua Franciscan team that was good. They were a good football team. Ursuline made them look like a JV team, 51-6. They get the win.
That was a really impressive win from Ursuline. And honestly, you look at what the Irish have done now. Erickson's revamped it. Like, we were all wondering, okay, Brady Shannon's gonna be gone. What are they gonna do? Was that state title run, making it to that state championship, the height, the pinnacle of what Ursuline can be for the next couple of years? And then Erickson just steps in and says, "I got next." Like, literally said, "I got next," and he has come out with 2 of the most impressive weeks we've seen out of high school football in the area, I think, from any team.
Crazy to think, coming into week 1, we didn't know who the quarterback was going to be. We were unsure. There was a quote-unquote quarterback controversy, to use kind of a professional term, in Ursuline. And now you see what Jack Erickson is doing. And you're thinking, why was there ever a thought,
And then it makes me wonder, how good are the other quarterbacks in Ursuline then? So
I think it was us and a media thing, because obviously DC Farrell was such a good quarterback for his freshman year. We thought, oh, they're gonna plug him in.
But if I'm not mistaken, Eric's a junior. So honestly, in a perfect world, sophomore year for DC Farrell, you got junior, senior, and then DC Farrell can be plugged right in. I mean, Coach Reardon, he's a smart man for a reason, and he looks for longevity.
God forbid anything would happen, you have a safety net too.
Yeah, exactly.
A good thing.
And you know what? At that position, at that quarterback position, it feels like you can't have enough depth at that position time to time.
That's the truth. Next game, 48-0. Girard gets the decisive win over their rival in Liberty, and this win opened a lot of people's eyes to Girard and said, "Oh, okay, we see you, the Indians. We see you, Girard."
I'm telling you, man. If there's a team in that NE8 this year that's going to step up, we've had different Warriors that try to step up to the Raider, right? We've had the Eagles, we've had the Bulldogs a pull, and I'm telling you, it feels like the Indians. It feels like Girard is that team that might be the one to try to step up. Not saying they can beat South Range, but it seems like there's always that one team that challenges them. I think it might be Girard this year.
Remember, that game will be in Girard this year as well when South Range does match up with the Indians in Arrowhead Stadium. You'll look at it, and it was a balanced offense for Girard. They had contributions from Nick Bengala, who, once again, can't stress enough how good it is to have him healthy. I mean, he came into last year, got hurt, Tristan Daly took over, and now Nick Bengala is back healthy. And then they have Michael Palmer in the backfield that can really, really put pressure on a defense. Coming off of his 1,000-yard season, he's got 200-yard games. He's rolling just as much as the rest of that offense is.
He opens up the offense so much. Does oh God, you just had
Palmer?
Yeah, Palmer. I can't believe I just lost his name that quickly. I was thinking Nick Bengala. He opens the offense so much for Nick Bengala too. Does Michael Palmer, and by him being able to establish that run game, get 100 yards games week in and week out like that, Nick Bengala has been able to really thrive in that offense. And what we've seen when he's healthy, man, he's been nothing short of impressive. And I think one of the more underrated quarterbacks we have in the area. I know there's a lot of great quarterback play. I think we need to start including his name in that list.
Yeah, the jersey switch this year too. Last year he was a quarterback that wore number 80, which I thought was kind of cool. It really made you pop
different. That's very different.
He dropped the 0 this year. He's number 8.
Yeah, he took the 0 off, and probably for good reason. It looks more natural in the
now he's got Troy Aikman's number. He's all good.
Yeah, he's all good.
There's a lot of 8's a good quarterback number.
It is a solid quarterback number. A lot of good quarterbacks.
If you're a fan of the 90s football,
yeah,
have a couple of really good 8s in there. We go on to the next game, which it was a 40-12 win for Valley Christian over LeBray. I think they smelled blood in the water after looking at LeBray film last week, and just said, let's not miss a beat this week. And Valley Christian played a well-executed, clean game, took care of business, and just moved on.
You remember too, and before it was United and Southern that battled it out for the EOAC last year, It was a 3-way race with Valley Christian being
Valley was right there.
Yeah, Valley dropped a couple games late that kind of took them out of the race, but Valley's reintroduced themselves as one of the top contenders in this UAC. And with the way things have looked, it might be a 3-team race again until the very end between Valley United and Southern.
We've said his name before, but Contrell Mixon impresses again for their offense. He has another big game, and he's one of my picks for like offensive player of the year right now. Like he is just – when I saw him on film against Camel, that was when I was like, whoa, this kid's different. He's big, he's physical, but he's fast. He's different. We got his stats on Friday. One of our fans commented he was listed at 6'4", 230. I was like, you're that, and you're as fast as you are down the sideline.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen him play basketball as well. He does a great job on the hardwood as well.
Like boxing that guy out. Like when I saw, I was like, whoa.
You know, Coach Carroll loves the fact that he has someone like that in the paint too.
We need Dolph to come on and talk about his basketball players playing football just to get that voice on my ass.
Just to have Dolph Carroll on.
He's a legend. He can come in and be an analyst.
He could just come on as the athletic director of Valley Christian. Yeah, that's the role we have to put him in for the interview.
East had a tough one in Cleveland Shaw. It was a battle all night, but they eventually fell to Cleveland Shaw 12-8.
Another close defeat for East, and it's just their defense doesn't seem to be an issue. It's that offense. They just can't get it off of the ground outside of the one score, 8 points in back-to-back weeks, and that's the one thing for the Bears I think you got to work on, right? Just being able to put together more sustained drives that come away with points, and I think East will be fine. Their defense has proven that they can compete the first 2 weeks.
They gave up 28 to Hubbard. They give up 12 here. That's an average of 20 per game right down the middle because it's 40-2. So, you look at in high school, 20 per game isn't terrible. It'll keep you in games if your offense can find ways to score. So East defense looks pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an improvement from what we saw last year, and it's making the right steps for this program for sure.
We'll continue on to our next score, which is Howland taking the 14-7 loss in the blue turf of Ravenna.
It was another defensive battle, but you know what? Ravenna is one of these teams that I don't know that you look at their loss too, and for Howland, this was one where it's just they were wishing that they could have finished some of those drives too. And just looking at it when I was watching the audible call back too, every time that Howland seemed to be close to the red zone, it's something just fell apart for them too. And Ravenna, they were able to hold on defensively. Credit the Ravens and credit the football teams out here as well, because they did a great job this week as well. But yeah, Ravenna showed defense can win you ball games from time to time, and it's certainly won on Friday.
Howland continues to get into these defensive ground and pound, physical, slow moving clock kind of games.
Yeah, and they need to just find a way to be successful in it too.
They can just, like we said it before, those kind of teams that want to control the ball, control the clock. It's a double-edged sword. If you don't finish that drive with points, then you've just wasted all that time and you're not any closer to victory.
Yeah.
So you just got to find a way to finish drives. You said they were in the red zone quite a bit.
And I mean, for Howland, it really just comes down to just, early season too, jitters that could happen as well. I'm sure they'll figure it out. That Ravenna team's always solid too. Like, take nothing away from the Ravens. They're always a solid team down here. They always produce good athletes. So it's not I wouldn't say bad loss to like a bad team at all in Ravenna either.
It's a tough loss. Howland's still trying to find that confidence in themselves and find, like I always say, you got to have those drives and expect that you're going to score, not hope you're going to score. Mm-hmm. I feel like, in those drives, they get into the red zone and they get tight a little bit. They're like, okay, we can't make a mistake now. We're so close. We gotta make sure we don't make a mistake. And it's counterintuitive, Ty, but you know it as well as I do. When you play not to make a mistake, usually that's when mistakes happen.
Yeah, and honestly, that's what you see too. Mistakes get magnified, and for this season too, you're going to be looking for Howland to try to bounce back in next week's game.
It wasn't like huge mistakes. It wasn't like they were fumbling the ball or throwing bad interceptions. It was like, hey, you missed your block there, and because of it, our running back got tackled a yard behind the scrimmage, and now we're behind the chains, which we don't want because Howland does not want to be behind the chains. You're not built for that. So
No.
little things like that, winning first down when you're in the red zone. I know the field gets smaller, so it's harder to kind of win first down on the run, but you got to be able to win first down, maybe get at least 3 yards on first, put yourself in front of the chains. I felt like when they got in the red zone, they kept losing first down.
They're also still trying to they need to try to replace some of the seniors that led the way last
Well,
year.
Wolmer was like 85% of their offense, and they lost him. So
they're gonna have to figure out how to get contributions elsewhere, and I mean they'll figure it out. It's a good program over there.
But are you shocked at all that Anthony Masucci continues to have impact on the offense like he does in every sport he touches?
He usually does, man. He always finds a way.
All right, we'll move on to the next game on the slate, which is Warren JFK looking like Warren JFK, 37-12. They get the win over Delta. So the airport beats the airline.
I was gonna say, like, what a Delta. I was like, what are we gonna go to? We're gonna go up now. We gotta play Charlie Beta. No,
Next week against Charlie.
That'd be funny.
I
That
don't
would
think
be
Charlie's.
funny.
I don't think Charlie's
A team named Charlie.
Ty. Charlie is not a Greek letter, by the way, just so you know. It is part of the naval alphabet, but it is not a Greek letter.
Yeah.
If you're going for that, cool.
I was not going. I was going. Yeah, I was
going
going for the. I was
military
going for
alphabet.
military. Yeah. Because
what are they? Oh, what's the name for it? Oh, it's gonna kill me. That's gonna be on Jeopardy tonight. I'm gonna be upset.
the Greek alphabet.
No, not the Greek alphabet. Like what the name of that military alphabet with the.
Oh, I can't think of the name of it. Too. I just call it. Yeah, I always just called it.
Okay, keep going.
But no, nonetheless, it's was JFK doing JFK things, like you said. They look dominant. They're going to be one of those teams, and D7 we're going to be looking at this year again as one of the favorites in the region to potentially make a state title run. I think
they're just going to keep taking care of business. I feel like this season, just beat the teams they should beat, get out of there with wins, and just do what they're always kind of the program that just do things the right way.
Yep, absolutely.
So they have no blemish on their schedule through it's phonetic alphabet. Chris Sigler helping me out. He can't be on the
Chris Sigler is literally
phonetic alphabet.
Chris Sigler was like wearing sunglasses and like a trench coat. He's like the genius in the background that
Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, man.
gets you. He got you everything. I love it. I love it.
So we'll go from that, and we're going to take our first break. We'll be back with more finals and recaps of the weekend's action on ysnlive.com's Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
21 News delivers the news as it happens, using the latest technology from where it happens. On air, online, Wednesday afternoon weather update,
very dangerous,
and on the 21 News social media platforms.
on the road right now.
21 News, the Valley's only locally owned source for trusted news since 1953.
As fine as the eye can see, the finest hardwoods from the finest trees. Made for your home and within your means, Baird Brothers will help fulfill your dreams. Let life and light come shining through in quiet morns. And heavy traffic, too. Find your easy-to-afford fine hardwood floors and doors and more at BairdBrothers.com.
Hi, this is Tommy Clem, owner of WRS Insurance Solutions.
WRS Insurance Solutions is a local independent agency that specializes in life, Medicare, long-term care, and disability products. Call us at 330-953-3722 or visit us at wrsinsuranceSolutions.com to learn more.
Good luck to all the student athletes in the Valley.
For a great vehicle and a great experience, come to Boardman Mitsubishi today. As always, our full lineup of Mitsubishi models comes with a standard 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. Boardman Mitsubishi, your hometown Mitsubishi dealer since 1999.
Now you can see every school, to the smallest school to the intermediate schools, to the schools in the outlying areas. It gives you coverage that you could just never get to before. It's something that's great to experience, and it's opened up a whole new wave of sports viewership. The possibilities are endless here at YSN. Push the envelope every day. Try something new. If it works, great. If it doesn't, well, let's try another angle, and we just keep moving forward. My name is Mike Ackelson, and my sports network is your sports network.
Reliability, innovation, scale. These three values are those we look forward to in our business and in our team. If you're ready for a reliable employer who looks constantly to think outside the box in big ways, we're ready for you. Apply now. Help us push the envelope and deliver success. Envelope 1. Take that one extra step.
Before the lights come on, before the workday begins, before a long day is ended, or it's time to have fun. It all starts with the people at Joe Dickey Electric. From replacing a light fixture in your home to building a substation for your business, no job is too big or too small. The people of Joe Dickey Electric power them all. Joe Dickey Electric, over 60 years of powering the Mahoning Valley.
You're not waiting to see what the world has in store for you. It's more about what you have in store for the world. All you need is the opportunity. All you need are the resources of a large university and the advantages of a personalized academic setting where you can experience new worlds in the arts and sciences, business, and education and make them your own. We are where you shape your future. We are Youngstown State University and proud.
WRS Wealth Advisors, the area's premier wealth and retirement specialists. Located on South Avenue in Boardman.
Welcome back to Running Point on ysnlive.com, brought to you as always by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. We thank them for their constant support and sponsorship of Running Point and YSN. Ty, we recapped a couple of games before a break. We will continue. And this was a really good one. Overtime, Conneaut beats Western Reserve 20-17. Reserve got the field goal in overtime. Conneaut punched it in with a 10-yard run to end it, and they get the 3-point win.
And I mean, what a great game too. And Amo had a great call throughout the whole game as well. And it was unfortunate that Western Reserve dropped that one, but a great game nonetheless as Conneaut sneaks away with one.
They tied it late to send it into overtime, so Western Reserve had momentum heading in. They just couldn't find the end zone in the first possession. Still got the field goal, so you kind of felt good about your defense. If you can just keep them out of the end zone, this game could keep going. But I think Conneaut's offense, that run game, just wore down Western Reserve by the end of it, and it was really hard to stop them. They have a good, solid run offense, especially that O-line when they have the power, that power run game, which is a little bit different than your outside zones or sweeps or tosses. That power run game of Conneaut ended up wearing down Western Reserve's defense, and they just couldn't keep them out of the end zone by the overtime.
And that's that old school football mentality, right? Of just wear down your opponent, and by the fourth quarter, there's not going to be much left, and you'll be able to sneak in those late scores to get victories. And Conneaut perfectly exemplified that on Friday night.
You know, it did remind you of old school football, and the phrase they used to use in that old school kind of realm was word of attrition, right? We're going to hit you as hard as we can. You're going to hit us as hard as we can. Who's the first one to kind of falter a little bit and fall? And really neither one of these teams did. I know Western Reserve gave up that touchdown in overtime to kind of get rid of it, but if that game kept going, then I think both teams would have just ended up scoring.
Probably. I mean, most likely. And Conneaut, though, gets the win, too, and congratulations to them on the victory.
At least both teams got the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't complain about that.
Oh my God. He's still butthurt. Has a ring. His team has a ring, and he's
You know, I have to dig into the. You know, I'm more hurt that the rule change got changed for Josh Allen and not when it happened.
Yeah, then
You know, whatever.
when it works out in his team's favor, it's all fine and dandy, though.
You know, we won't get into it. We just won't. We won't. 20-14, Jefferson gets the win. They are 2-0, and they're kind of looking just right now like last year's Jefferson team. They're rocking in non-conference play. Last year, they got a big win week 1. They had a competitive win against Harvey. So things looking kind of exactly the way they did last year right now for Jefferson.
And the thing is, for this upcoming battle of, I wanted to get the name, Hoadley Cup. Yeah, that's right. The Hoadley Cup. It's going to be a great matchup between Jefferson and Edgewood. And I think 440 and Goal even mentioned it on their socials too, where these teams are ranked in the regions right now on Joe Itel. So it makes all the more interest and intrigue for this game coming up.
Ashtabula County football is actually doing really good for itself. You look at not just where Jefferson and Edgewood are ranked because they're both 2-0. You look at Ashtabula Lakeside, they're number 1 in Division II, Region 5. Fifth is 4, but Ashtabula Lakeside 1.
If I'm not mistaken, Geneva and Conneaut are part of Ashtabula County too, am I not?
Yeah, yep.
So both of them getting wins as well. So you look at that. I mean, Ashtabula County got introduced a little bit with YSN, but they're showing us all over what they're made of this year.
They're living large, and Jefferson's just a part of it. And I'm telling you, I think it's a different Jefferson team this year. I think they're just 1 year older, 1 year more mature, and I think some of the inexplicable mistakes that happened in close games last year won't happen this year. I think Grant Hitchcock, senior year, I think he looks really good.
And you know what? I'm excited for a league play to open up, but this is the last non-conference game before that happens, and it's always a big one, and it's always a fun one. I expect it to be packed as a rivalry game alert for week 3.
This one will be in Edgewood. Last year, Jefferson took the first win of the series in a long time in Jefferson. Edgewood looking for revenge to bring the say it again, Hobley Cup.
Hoadley Cup.
I had the letters right. This pronunciation.
Yeah. Hoadley Cup.
Hoadley Cup. Back to Edgewood. Jefferson wants to keep it at home for 2 straight years.
Yeah, and I mean, Edgewood's been no stranger to close victories down the stretch, and they're going to be looking for another one going into this.
2 close victories in a row for Edgewood. As they got the win over Grand Valley in week 2. How about this score, Ty? Crestview loses to Southern Local, but 12-7. A week after we saw Southern put on an offensive show against McDonald, they went to Crestview, and that defense of the Rebels, 2 weeks in a row where they've given really good offenses everything they could handle.
And honestly, tough luck losses for Crestview in back-to-back weeks.
Truly. Their defense, I'm a firm believer in their defense now.
You have to be after 2 consecutive weeks of shutting down some really potent offenses.
And what this does for me as well is it gives me a little bit more ability to forgive Salem's struggles in week 1 offensively. Because, going into week, you didn't really know how, just off that game, you didn't know how much of it was Crestview being a really good defense and Salem kind of struggling in week 1. You didn't know how those scales kind of balance out. After week 2, when you saw what Salem did offensively, and then you saw what Crestview did defensively, you start to think maybe we shouldn't really be too hard on Salem for only scoring 17 points and having numbers that weren't to their standards. They were still pretty good offensive numbers, but not their standard good numbers on the offensive side of the ball. Well, Crestview's defense is pretty dang good.
Crestview just got to shore some things up offensively, and I think they will be fine this season. And Coach Cusick knows what he has, and he has a bunch of athletes there, and he knows that he can put those athletes to work on defense and that they're going to give teams fits and all that they're worth. And that's a thing. I mean, going up against defenses, I mean, high IQ players you're always looking for as well, right? You're looking for the guys that know the situational football, what to do. But when you go up against those athletes, those guys that just have those motors that don't seem to stop, that can just keep up with your receivers and just keep up with the line, your offensive line, go with the flow the whole time too, battle with you all 4 quarters. It wears you down as an offense too, going against that defense. Kind of like counterintuitive how the offense is supposed to wear the defense down. When you go up against some legendary athletes like that, it's tough to go against these kids these days too. And Crestview's got filled with guys that just have these high motors that just keep on going and going and going.
I believe in Kirkland Miller. I think he will figure it out. We saw him in the basketball realm kind of get thrown into a rebounding role 2 years ago when they lost a couple of good rebounders, and they said, due to injury in the middle of the season, they said, Kirkland, we have to leave. We have to rely on you to get our rebounds. And he went and he did the work, and he ended up being, I think, the leader in rebounds for that season, and he led them in rebounds last season too. He figures stuff out when you put him in that situation. He works hard. He's a great kid. I think he'll figure it out behind the center. I think he'll figure out, what it takes to be a winning quarterback. And if that happens, if this Crestview offense just gets a little multidimensional, Rockland Batura is good enough. If you can't, if you can't devote everyone to stopping him, then he will tear defenses apart.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean that you got to remember a lot of these guys play 2 ways. And when I say that they're big, but they're agile, they're fast, they're full of athletes. And I mean, I wasn't knocking too the football IQ either. Still high football IQ in Crestview, but you face off against these type of athletes as an offense. It is tough to go against because it seems like they keep up with every single move that you try to make. And that's what Crestview does. Nothing comes easy when you play the Rebels.
Look, at the end of the day, these non-conference games are built to get you ready for conference play. And Crestview took 2 tough losses against 2 really good teams. I'm not writing them off at all in the MVAC grade tier. I hope no one else is either.
Oh, you can't. I mean, look at the defenses, the defense that they put up against one of the EOAC's and one of the EBC's best offenses going into this season, and held them both to under 20 points. And you look at that, and I know Salem and Southern are both very thankful that they played Crestview in the first 2 weeks, because if you want to talk about those non-conference games or those games that test you before a conference play and before the upcoming playoffs too, if you're trying to make a spot in it, you're looking for games like that.
And then you look at Southern, and it was another great performance by Wyatt Morris. He had 85 yards, 16 carries. And Ryan Exline threw for 104 yards on 4 completions. You get 4 completions. They don't throw the ball a lot. I think it was 4 for 8. So 4 for 8 with 104 yards. That means you're making the most out of every time you drop back in the pocket.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's what you need to do, right? If you're going to be one of those guys, you got to make the most out of your opportunities too. And when you get them, don't miss them.
330 yards of total offense for Southern Local, but when it mattered the most, Crestview's defense was bend but don't break. They only let them score 12.
Yeah, and I mean, tough luck loss for Crestview. They'll look to bounce back in week 3 now.
Now, you talk about Southern side real quick when they venture into EOAC play. This EOAC is starting to turn into defense here, really good defense here, really good defense there. I think this is going to be like maybe the best defensive conference play that we see all season.
For EOAC as well,
these would be some low-scoring, quote-unquote, championship games in the EOAC.
And for the non-conference play of the EOAC, this is exactly, I think, what they needed to see. Because if you look at those 3 teams out of United, Valley Christian, and now Southern, you look at who's been tested now. I think out of all of them, I think the biggest test that any of those 3 teams have had to face is Southern against Crestview. And those kind of tests and coming out on top, I think, are going to tremendously help Southern and the Indians going into EOAC play.
When you look at the offenses in the conference, Valley Christian is the only one that had an explosive offense in both weeks.
Yeah. So we'll have to see. I mean,
against these teams defend Valley Christian is going to be one thing, but then when they go up against each other, these might be 12-7, 14-13 type games.
And Valley Christian hasn't been scoffing on defense either. I mean, no. I know their opponents aren't necessarily the caliber of what Crestview is right now at this season, but still they're putting up some great numbers defensively.
We're gonna have a serious talk about strength of schedule later on the show when we bring up.
Yeah, I'm sure we will too.
we have some stuff to get through. 42-20, Struthers takes the loss to Geneva, and like you said earlier when we were talking about Geneva playing Springfield next week, I don't think we expected this. Geneva came in and they took it to the Wildcats.
Yeah, we were all expecting different results, but Geneva, they definitely came in and they caught the Wildcats not prepared, it seemed like, too, at certain cases, as Geneva really took advantage of, it seemed like, everything that they were given this game, and I mean forcing any kind of turnover to go their way as well, too. It just seemed like one of those nights where everything was going Geneva's way.
Struthers, what do you say? They're still a young team at the end of the day. They're still a pretty young team. And
1-1 on the season at the end of the day. You're still 1-1 on the season, still 8 games left on the slate. You take one on the chin, you learn from it, you learn from the mistakes, and you try to improve from them going into week 3. But still, 1-1 on the season, not in a crisis situation yet.
I guess the biggest advice for Struthers right now is don't let one loss turn into 2.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to lose next week, but don't let this be the reason why you lost.
Yeah, you can't. You're gonna have to flush it. Don't keep it in your head too. Don't let it linger as week 3. I mean, you're just a few days away. So
you gotta kind of put it. Watch the film on it or whenever you watch it. Maybe over the weekend. Either ceremoniously or metaphorically burn the film. Some coaches like to actually, back when it was hard copy, actually burn the film and say, we're going to forget about that game. We're going to move on to the next one. I think that's a sports movie trope. Now, like every coach in sports movies are like, this game sucked. We're going to take it. We're going to burn the film and we're going to leave it in the past. Fire hazard. Let's not do that. But let's metaphorically burn it and move on to the next game.
Yeah, but I mean, it's also too, it's not totally useless if there's things to be learned from it too. And there's certainly a lot that I think Struthers can look at and say, we can be better here too. And this can definitely change what the way that outlook of that game would have looked like.
Well, there's 42-20 in that game. The next final is 40-22. So very similar games as Wyndham drops the game to Richmond 40-22.
And honestly, Wyndham taking week 3 off because of injuries, and this was kind of the issue last year with some of these small schools. They're so small that, I mean, for the football team, 2-3 injuries can be too detrimental to the entire starting team. So
Wyndham has 8 in 2 weeks.
It's tough, man, being a small school and having small limited roster sizes.
You got to get kind of lucky and not get hit by the injury bug. And unfortunately,
all those athletes play like 3 or 4 sports too, so it's like wear and tear on them too over the course. It's bound to happen. Just unfortunate it's happening all at the same time over there in Bomber Country.
As Ty said, Wyndham is going to have week 3 off now. We will get into their opponent was going to be Jackson Milton. Jackson Milton did find a replacement game, so we'll get into that when we talk about their game. But you look at Wyndham, and you just feel for it because, like, they went into this season and they played 2 really physical teams back to back. I mean, Lisbon is showing people just how physical and hard-hitting they are. Then Richmond's kind of always known for that, hard-nosed, physical type of football. So not only is it a tough situation to be in, but then you look at your schedule and you go, we're playing 2 really physical teams back to back, and we're hoping to get away from it without an injury. And Wyndham just couldn't.
No, and I mean, it's unfortunate to see the list of injuries that they have. You wish the best of health to all those athletes, and hopefully we see all those guys back on the field soon out in Bomber Country.
As of now, I think they're kind of hoping that a lot of those injuries are just going to be week rest and back for week 4 and get back to football. And that's what we hope too. We love to see the Bombers. Not only do we love to see them, but man, these uniforms are so fly.
Yeah, they do look nice.
Have you seen, I love gold on white is one of my so the gold numbers on the white with the white helmet and the gold, it just looks really good. I think one of if I had to pick best uniforms right now, Wyndham would be near the top. I love gold on white.
I've always liked I like that, and I like the name. I like the scheme. I think it's a really, like I said, one of the more unique teams we have. Teams and names.
It's a fairly original W. I know it's hard to get original with the W, but I don't know anyone else that has that identical kind of bubble W logo. So it's an original. I love it. I love the way they look. I like the gold stripe down the white helmet with the black outline. It looks really good.
They do. They look real fly, do the Bombers.
Look good, feel good, play good, right? That's how it works. Garfield, they had a test. And I think people came into this game not knowing how much of a test that Lakeview would give up after Lakeview's big dominant win in week 1. But Lakeview gave Garfield everything they wanted. It was close most of the game. A late score made it 17-7. Garfield gets the win.
I'm a little bit more of a believer in the Bulldogs now, man, because they really did give the G-men everything they were worth. And Lakeview might be one of those teams. I wouldn't say that. I'm not going to say that they might go 8-9 wins and run the NE8, right? But I think if 5-win team can be expected, I think, out of this Lakeview team, maybe, honestly.
Pretty confidently, like 5 wins on their schedule should be good enough for a playoff.
And to go from no wins to 5 wins, like, talk about a big step. You go from that step, and then you could start looking forward too. But I mean, of course, if Lakeview's going to keep riding momentum, they just beat a team in LeBray first week, and they almost beat a really good team in Garrettsville Garfield.
There were times when we were watching, it's like Lakeview's going to win this game.
Yeah,
the
Bulldogs are a much improved football team.
They really are, and you know what? They've bought into Coach Malone, and that's widely apparent. And that's the first step.
And I'm so happy for that Cortland community because they're so supportive of everything Lakeview too, and they support all those athletic teams so much. So they deserve to have good winners and good competitive teams. And I'm glad that they got that in their football team right now.
On Garfield's side, say what you will about what they lost, and they definitely lost a lot last year, especially Anthony Demo, so important to that offense. But they're finding ways to win. They're getting tested. They got tested by Cardinal, and they found a way to finish that game and win, and they got tested by Lakeview. They found a way to win. So Garfield continues to be a winning traditional football program.
And this is why we've always said, and that's why, I mean, it's hard not to pick Garfield in those kind of games where it's almost toss-up because of just the tradition of winning. When they get into this position, it's within the coaching staff, it's within the community, it's within the fans that are cheering for the team. There's just almost a sense of calm when it goes into these kind of situations where Garfield knows that they can pull it off and they're going to be just fine.
You say it's hard to pick them in the top. I say it's always hard to pick against Garfield. I don't care. Like, it's hard to see.
It's hard to, it's hard to pick against them too, is what I meant.
It's hard to go into a game thinking Garfield's completely outmatched in this one. Like, it doesn't compute.
No. They always find a way to kind of even the odds or move the games a bit.
Well, I know last year's team is different, but remember, this is the team that was as close as anyone got to Kirtland last year.
They did what we saw too. I mean, similar to what we saw South Range do 2 years prior. Garfield gave their shot to Kirtland, and I mean, they gave them everything they were worth. I mean, defensively, they gave Kirtland everything that they could handle.
5 points they held Kirtland to,
which was astronomically low for Kirtland's standards.
Average like 35 a game, 38 a game, something like that. So
I mean, you look at that. That was great defense by Garfield too, and it's because they stay disciplined, honestly.
And they hold a team that scored 34 last week to just 7 this week. So the defense still looking good in Garfield, and they are 2-0 on the season.
Still a great non-conference game for Lakeview to perfectly test them before that NE8 play.
Another 2-0 team, Jackson Milton, proves they can win in 2 different ways, as they kind of were the high-flying offense in week 1, but this one was a defensive struggle. Jackson Milton said, hey, we can play that way too if you want, and they win 16-13 over Newton Falls.
It went the other way of what I thought. I did think Newton Falls was going to win it, but it did go the way I thought as far as the game. And I didn't think Jackson Milton was going to be that offensive slugfest again and putting it on Newton Falls. I talked about Newton Falls' defense prior to this game on Friday, and they showed up big time. But the one thing I wasn't expecting Jackson Milton, after having that offensive game like they did against Latonia, to come out and say, okay, we could play that kind of defensive battle too, and we could find a way to win.
Their defense had to come up big because it was 16-6 late in the fourth quarter. Newton Falls scored a touchdown without needing to use their timeouts to make it 16-13. Jackson Milton recovered the onside kick, but because Newton Falls stopped them from getting a first down and they had timeouts left, Newton Falls was able to get the ball back, and they were driving. It was like, oh man, Newton Falls could do this. And then they threw Jackson Milton got an interception to end the game. So defense came up big with a big play as Newton Falls tried to grab momentum late, and they win 16-13.
And this was a game too that last year Newton Falls was able to win. So Jackson Milton gets a little bit of revenge.
Remember, right? Handedly last year.
Yeah. So Jackson Milton gets a bit of revenge. Still a solid Newton Falls team out there. They still do things the right way, similar to kind of Garfield standards, where you always expect that defense to be solid, and it looks like another solid Tigers defensive squad this year.
Jackson Milton is now 2-0. They were supposed to play Wyndham next week. That game has been moved. Now Jackson Milton will play LeBray at Jackson Milton for a home game next week. So that's a schedule change. So if you're looking at the schedules, it was originally Wyndham. LeBray will play Jackson Milton. Niles, as far as I know, is currently looking for an opponent because they were supposed to play LeBray. LeBray switched to Jackson Milton, and now Niles is looking for a week 3 opponent.
That's wild that all happened too in the course of like a week. Of just so much changing around. But
a day, really, because Wyndham canceled on Saturday, and I think by Saturday night, Jackson Milton was like, I think by Saturday night, LeBray canceled their game with Niles and then picked up Jackson Milton.
Like LeBray was just like dumped the girl on a homecoming day too. It was just like, no, we got someone better.
It's funny that they're doing because they're going on the road now, so their homecoming game isn't home anymore. That's kind of odd to me.
Yeah, LeBray pulled one of those, left him stranded at the front door for homecoming night when someone else. But hey, we got.
I see what you're saying. It was going to be Niles' homecoming. Is that what it?
No, I was just making a joke.
Oh, I thought you were serious. I thought I was thinking like you were saying it was LeBray's homecoming game.
No,
on the road.
No.
Okay. I thought you had some inside info. I was getting very confused.
No, but LeBray now matched up with Jackson Milton should be a fun matchup.
Really good game on this one. 25-22. Rootstown comes back and snatches victory out of Champion. Champion had this game. They're going to watch this film, and they're going to be so frustrated because they're going to feel like they had this game under wraps. Rootstown scored. I think they scored twice in the fourth quarter. Jackson Milton was up 22-10, I think, in the fourth.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, it was one of those cases where Rootstown just put together some late runs and late rallies and were able to take it away from them. And like I said, Portage County teams got some big wins. Ravenna got one against Talon, and we saw Rootstown take one against Champion. So I guess in the battle of Portage versus Warren, it was Portage County that came on top.
Once Rootstown got momentum in this game, it was like it was an unstoppable force. They could not. All of a sudden, the offense that couldn't do much in the rest of the game, all of a sudden they could do everything they wanted. It's weird when that happens in sports. It's like it's the same players out there. They're running the same plays, but all of a sudden, everything they want to do, they can do because of momentum, which really, momentum is this like unmeasurable kind of entity that really, if playing fields are even, it shouldn't even exist. Because, like I said, it's the same players, same athletes, but all of a sudden, like Rootstown was getting things to work. Momentum doesn't make sense. Is what my point is.
Rootstown has solid teams, though. We've seen their baseball, their softball team. I mean, they always produce solid athletic teams, and they're doing it again with the football team this year.
Momentum is always the proof that mental aspect of the game is important. Because like I said, physically it's the same people doing the same things, but momentum and momentum is all mental, and momentum was unstoppable for Rootstown.
Absolutely.
And Champion, tough luck loss there. They go to 0-2. They had to open with JFK, and then they get a loss like that to Rootstown. Tough schedule.
For sure. And Champion, another one of those teams, going to be looking for win 1 in week 3.
Edison's defense has given up 8 total points in 2 games. They win in week 2, 41-0 over Wellsville.
What a win, too, for Edison. Another big win for them. And, I mean, Coach Colopy continuing to do all the right things over there with that program and continuing to build it as they're looking real good to start the season.
We keep reminding people, we'll do it again. 3 years ago, this team was 0-10. The COVID season, they were 3-5. Last year, they were a playoff team, and now they're off to a 2-0 start. And they're really impressive 2-0 start. No problems in the first 2 weeks. And like I said, they have given up 8 points in 2 weeks, and they have scored 83. So they have won week 1 and 2, 83-8 total.
Edison on top of the world. I can't wait to see the rest of their schedule play out.
How are they going to keep going? I mean, they have a tough conference, of course. They have another game next week. But right now, both sides of the field look to be all smooth for Edison.
For sure. I mean, they're definitely running on all cylinders right now and running efficiently.
we're going to take a time out, take our next break of the day. And when we come back, we will continue our recaps of the weekend on Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
Jimmy Sutton here, Director of Isle, Purple Cat, and Golden String. We are happy to support YSN and two of my favorite people, Scotty Mincher and Super Dave O'Malley. We are an agency that provides services for adults with disabilities. We infuse humor, passion, and joy into their lives. If you know of any folks with disabilities that need our assistance, please contact us.
How lucky are we to have not one, but two 18-hole Donald Ross Championship golf courses right here in our backyards. Mill Creek Golf Course was selected by Golf Week as one of America's 30 best municipal courses, continuing to challenge golfers of all levels and featuring PGA professionals, golf instruction, a players rewards club, kids programs, and a pro shop and grill room for a memorable golf experience. Call or click to schedule your tee time at Mill Creek Golf Course.
At Greenwood Chevrolet, we offer a worry-free experience for all our customers. From sales to financing and even service, we'll help build your perfect vehicle
and lock in your trade value
while your vehicle is being built.
No worries.
We guarantee financing,
regardless of your situation or credit history.
No worries. And when your vehicle needs service,
our award-winning team will get you back on the road.
No worries.
That's what going the extra mile means. Only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
Now is the time to think about your future, where you want to go, what you want to be. Your future can start now at Kent State Salem or Kent State East Liverpool. We have programs that will open doors and provide opportunities for you to pursue your passion. We are affordable. We are close. You call it hometown. We call it Kent State University. Learn more at www.kent.edu/Columbiana. You belong here.
Welcome back to Running Point on ysnlive.com, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Anthony Hartwig with you, and so is Ty Bartell, and we continue our recap of the weekend, a long weekend with a lot of results coming through. And the next one we're going to talk about, West Branch coming off that tough loss to Canfield by 4 points. Kind of reminded everyone that they're still a really good football team. 43-13, they beat a Woodridge team. They gave them a heck of a game last year.
Yeah, and I mean, West Branch looking really good in week 2 as they put up a convincing win against Woodridge and doing warrior things too, doing it with that offense.
Wouldn't be surprised if that loss for Canfield is the only loss West Branch suffers.
Very well could
it might
be.
actually be what catapults them to go, even further than anyone thought they could.
Very well could be for that team. I mean, they're definitely looking good in week 2.
Because, a lot of outsiders look at that West Branch game against Canfield and say, oh, this was your chance to really prove you're one of the dominant teams in the area, and you couldn't do it, Canfield. They took a big lead on you. Yeah, you came back, but you lost, And I think West Branch was like, yeah, wait a minute. Do you know who we have on our roster? We're
West Branch led in that game at various points, too. Had leads in that game at various points. So West Branch has, I think, nothing to take away from that. I mean, in week 1, too, anything could happen. No one's as sharp. Play this game again in week 8, 9, you might get a different result. You never know.
I would love to see another Canfield West Branch in week.
I would love to.
I think the perfect week would be like week 6. Because by then, the wear and tear of the season hasn't really fully gotten there yet. But there's enough games under the belt that you can tell both teams are kind of mid-season form per se. So I think week 6 would be a perfect time for one of those big marquee matchups.
Let's do it. Make it happen.
Let's go. West Branch can afford a couple of actually they both could because they don't have conference.
I guess to talk about it, are you a fan of having non-conference and then straight conference, or would you rather have a non-conference game mixed into your conference schedule throughout a season?
There are a lot of benefits to having the 3 non-conference and then 7 conference games because you get ready. It's almost like a quote unquote preseason, even though it counts towards your record. Everything kind of builds to that one goal, which is winning the conference. But now that there are a lot of teams out there that, you could argue that there are a lot of coaches out there that don't put winning a conference on a big pedestal anymore. It's more about getting to the playoffs, making a deep playoff run. That's what our goal is. Maybe now you don't need those 3 playoff games to prepare you for the conference, so you go win the conference. That used to be the case when playoff pools were small, especially back before it went to 8, when there were only 4 teams that even made the playoffs. Even before then, it was two teams. So then there were a lot of teams that knew kind of they weren't going to make the playoffs because they weren't one of those prestigious programs. So their goal was win the conference. So those 3 conference games, and then boom, you were right in the conference play. We want to win the conference. Now the playoffs are expanded. Everyone kind of gets not everyone, but a lot of people get a chance to make a playoff run. I think priorities have switched into playoffs versus conference play. So there could be an argument made that, hey, we will play our conference games. We absolutely will, but hey, we have a big test against a Canfield per se. Let's play them in week 6 instead of doing 3 and then ending it.
Especially in football too, those 3 non-conference games matter a ton as far as computer points are concerned, and where you're gonna get ranked, and potentially if you can make the playoffs too in those wins. And for teams that are looking to test themselves, it could be beneficial if they can make one of those non-conference games their week 8 or their week 9 opponent, instead of just doing 3 non-conferences, 1, 2, 3. Like you probably brought up the prospect too. Right now in the current system, we couldn't see it, but imagine seeing your Canfield West Branch in week 6 too, and talk about testing yourself with a great opponent middle of the season too, to see where you're at, to kind of get that measuring stick game middle of the season.
I know there's a lot of people that like the rivalry games in week 1 now, and that's kind of the thing it was. We see non-conference rivals in week 1, your South Range, Springfield, your Edgewood and Chevers. These big rivalry games are happening early. I kind of like them at the end of the season. I like your big rival last game, like put a cap on your season by beating your rival. I kind of like that. They do it in college. All those non-conference rivalries are the last game in the college football season.
Rivalry week.
Louisville, Kentucky is Louisville, Kentucky is week 10, week 12 or whatever in college football. Michigan, Ohio State's always the last game of the year. Picking another Auburn, Alabama is always the last.
Yeah, Auburn, Alabama is always there. FSU and Florida, or Florida.
Right. Florida State and Florida is always the last. So you go through and you go. Notre Dame usually plays either USC or one of their rivals last game of the year. So rivalry games are kind of. I like them at the end of the year, kind of like as everyone's in. Where the teams are set. There's a lot more on the line, because what if this team is in college? What if this team's number 10 and this team's number 1? There's a lot more emphasis on that game. I just like rivalries at the end of the season.
I'm kind of I'd be kind of on board with allowing teams out. If a team wants to have their 3 non-conference at the beginning, I'm cool with it. But I'm cool also with having them have the freedom to, if you want to have one in the beginning, the middle, and the end of your season, have a non-conference game each one of those.
Here's where it might get sticky, and I think these conferences want all their games lined up. So
yeah, it's
I don't think you would ever be able to say. I'm just throwing out the example. Like South Range, you do what you want. Hubbard, you do what you want. Just make sure you get your conference games in. I think you would have to have that agreement.
It would have to be an agreement, like week 2, 6, and 9 will be dedicated, or week 3, 6, and 9 will be dedicated non-conference games, and everything else will be conference. But I mean, even if you did that, I don't know if every team would necessarily be opposed to like if you said 3, 6, and 9 be your non-conference games, or whatever the weeks may be.
I'm interested in what side of the fence do you sit on rivalry games? Do you like the week 1 rivalry, or do you like the last week of the season?
I like last week of the season. I like week 1. I like non-conference opponent, but I like new opponents week 1. Give me someone new. Give me a new game that we haven't seen. Give us something new to introduce us to this football season. That's why I like, if you're going to do like non-conference, do like week 1. Week 10 is what I would do. Have the conference decided the week before at week 9, and then you could throw another one in the middle of the season too, as like a middle of the season non-conference game. And I think it would be, I think just to try it out for some of these conferences, I think it'd be interesting, and I think it would provide.
Right now, I don't think it's a set rule that you have to function your schedule. Because I think it's just one of those things that people just do. I don't think it's like the OHSA says you have to have 3 non-conference games and you have to play conference games the last 7 weeks of the season.
Yeah. So I'm like, give me the matchups that we haven't seen or we don't see all the time in week 1, and give me the rivalry games, non-conference wise, week 10. Then, like that's all cool with me. I think
And
that's awesome.
there are teams that are in the smaller conferences that don't play, 3
Mhm.
non-conference games, 7.
This is obviously for the ones, yeah. Your NEH, your both sides.
West Branch is one of those teams because there's only with what Canton South is gone now.
6 teams, I think, in the
6? Is it 6?
because there's Marlington, Alliance, Salem, West Branch, Carrollton,
And Minerva.
and Minerva. Yeah,
Right. Canton South left. So you got 5 conference games instead of, like the need has 7. So now you have.
but I mean that is
you have
EOAC
5 and 5.
and both MVAC conferences all have 7 conference games. So that would be the discussion.
West Branch has that's where you're in a tough spot with West Branch because you're one of the only conferences in your little area that you can afford 2 more non-conference games. So it's like, who do I play now? Everyone else has conference games they have to schedule.
Yeah, West Branch has to look for those other small conferences too to try to get with, or some of those independent schools. And I mean, there's been a lot more independent football schools too that have been out there as well. So there's always room to schedule those for non-conference as well.
So the next score we got on the slate, Poland goes to Louisville and wins 21-10. And I think this surprised some people. I think people thought that, both these teams were in a struggle spot, but going to Louisville was a different animal, and they thought that Louisville's stature and size would just be enough to beat Poland, but Poland came through and got it done 21-10.
And even Nick Colosimo was in there too, I think, to call it for Louisville too. The Poland man himself during the pick show was calling for.
Whoa.
He called Louisville, so it was wild. But I think 2 things we found out. Number 1, Poland still has a good program, good tradition. They know how to win. Number 2, Cheney is a lot better than what we gave him credit for week 1. I think we need to start talking a lot more about Cheney in that week 1 victory and a lot less about what Poland did in that one.
My brother was at the Cheney Boardman game, like live, and he goes, Anthony, the camera doesn't do Cheney justice. And
I believe it.
Like you've probably you've been able to watch them without watching them on camera because you've been able to call them, but it's like it's almost when you watch a sport on TV and then you go watch it live and you're like, it's different live. Same thing with Cheney. Like watching them on camera doesn't quite do it. Doesn't give you the respect.
I've watched
how fast they are, how big they are, and just they get to their spots.
I watched the Waller kid literally run through tackles like nothing happened to him on a good Boardman Spartans team. Just like, I'm all right.
Bounce off like it's like you're wearing a bulletproof vest, and
he's like, I'm good on that one, dog. Like it just like sheds them. Get off me.
Like Juggernaut running through a wall. Right?
Like honestly, he's just man. My man went through that line like a hot knife through butter. Like he literally went through the defensive line like it was nothing in that video. It was incredible.
That was funny because you're watching the game. It's like, oh, Boardman really competed with this. He can't even pulled away late. My brother was like, Boardman had no chance in that game. There was never close. Even if the score was close, he goes, it wasn't close. Like that's his.
That's incredible. That's incredible to talk about. And you know what? You're going up against another very old school West Side rivalry in week 3 for Cheney and Mooney.
And we'll talk about it later when we get to Saturday. But Mooney made that game a lot more interesting because they looked pretty good on Saturday.
They definitely did. But that was a great game. Going back to what we were originally talking about too. I know we kind of lingered Cheney into this as well, but Poland. Great win, great bounce back against a good Louisville team. And you know what? I think Poland really shut the mouths of a lot of people that were doubting him after that week 1 loss and showcased once again, you know what? Coach Pavlansky rolled up the sleeves, I think, a little bit, got in there, did a little bit of coaching after week 1, 2. The boys responded, obviously, to it week 2. They battened down the hatches and got a huge week 2 victory, thanks in part to that great defense showing up again.
Still a lot of work to do in Poland, but I think that's a step in the right direction. You got to remember against that Cheney game too, 4 turnovers hurt their cause.
It definitely does. Yeah, turnovers will kill you.
And not saying that that's any but You're not going to turn the ball over 4 times in a game too many times. So you take that for what it's worth.
Absolutely.
United is impressive as always. 55-21. They get the winner for East Canton. And we've said it before. Their defense, even though 21 points, their defense is really good.
Look at that offense again. Look at the receiving. I told you, and Grant Knight he already has more receiving yards and receptions than the leading receiver from last year's team did. So, like, if it doesn't tell you that United is a different team, the pass game is completely opened up now. They have valuable runners all over the field, and their defense still as solid as it was, I think, a year ago, too. That's a good East Canton team that was able to put up points, and I'm sure that a lot of those points, too, I didn't get a chance to watch the game, so forgive me on this, but I'm sure a decent amount of those points probably came late in fourth quarter with maybe some secondaries and some of the younger team in for United as well.
Oh, that's because Mr. Courtney has stepped up into this quarterback role and taken it by the reins. I mean, last year was kind of a plug in whoever we could plug in. Sometimes this
Grant Knight was the quarterback when his true position slot receiver, and you see what he does when he's a receiver.
It's a good problem to have for United because you have someone that if you want to run a gadget play or if you want to get you have someone that can throw the ball and can get behind center in Grant Knight. But now you have someone whose one position is quarterback.
And I think United is showcasing once again. EOAC, we're right in that 3-team race, man. Get ready for it.
I think there's going to be one play this year where Grant Knight gets to throw the ball on a trick play.
You probably would expect it, honestly. I mean, similar to what you see in some of those college plays all the time, the dump off pass on a screen where it gets launched down the field.
Half those kids played quarterback all 4 years
exactly.
Anyway, so it's like, yeah, you can do it.
Yeah, so they let them do it, and hey, it works out a decent amount of times in the college level game as well.
Maybe we'll see DC Farrell throw a ball for Urson.
Oh, I'm sure. You got to utilize him. Oh. Coach Reardon's like, shut your mouth and don't talk about the trick.
I just got he just pops on and just kicks me off the show.
Keep it quiet.
Block.
We're saving it for the playoffs.
He's sitting there like, well, scrap that.
Yeah. No, I'm sure with Ursuline, they're definitely another team. Having that is a great issue to have.
And don't blacklist me. We go from that game to Canfield, who travel on the road to Bellevue. 28-12, they took care of business and came back home.
Good winning against a good team for the Canfield Cardinals, too. And you know what? Canfield showcases once again why they're one of the best teams in the area. And I tell you what, boy, oh boy, Division III cannot get more loaded, I think, this year in our region alone. You're talking about some great matchups that are going to be on the slate this season. Canfield still has to play Cheney. That could be a preview of end times of, or I guess end of regionals, I guess what we say, for Canfield and Cheney to match up again.
I think I got it under control.
All good now?
Yeah. So, yeah, that would be fun if we saw that twice.
I can't wait for the matchup this year, too. I think Canfield has a really good schedule, and I think that win against Bellevue was a really good win for the Cardinals, too.
All right, now we're done. Now we've gotten through. All right, let's go to the next game. Maybe not. 40-14, that Cheney team that we talked about got the win over Boardman. This is a close game scoreboard-wise. I was told from some people on the field that said it was never really all that close. You always felt like Cheney was just hands down the better team. But to Boardman's credit, they scored first really quick, got a 7-0 lead. Cheney had 20 unanswered, took a 20-7 lead in the halftime. Boardman came out. First drive of the third quarter, drove right down the field, scored a touchdown, made it 20-14. You felt like, all right, the Spartans are right back in this. And then Cheney just ran back the kick return for a touchdown, and it was kind of all Cowboys after that.
Yeah, I talked about Waller in this game. I mean, there's all kinds of athletes. Hewlett's another one. There's all kinds of great athletes on this Cheney team, and they showcased it 2 consecutive weeks in a row against 2 of the area's better programs.
You can argue this because there's a lot of momentum plays in football. You know, there's a pick six, there's a fumble. I think a kickoff return for a touchdown is probably the most momentous swinging play in a football game, especially if you do it right after your opponent got within a score. Like you take it and you say, I'm not even gonna have the offense touch the ball and I'm gonna score on you. Like that's, in my opinion, that's the biggest momentum swing, a kickoff return for a touchdown. People can argue that and they can say a different play, a pick six or something like that. But kickoff returns for touchdowns just they do something to a team's mentality. I've seen a lot of games get turned around real quick by a kickoff return.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, they can definitely be those type of momentum swinging plays, and it certainly was on Friday.
Think about how demoralizing that is for Boardman to work so hard, drive the field, get a touchdown, and you're only down by 6 now. And then before you can blink, Cheney runs back a kickoff return for a touchdown. They're back up 27-14.
It's just how the Cheney Cowboys operate this year, and it's going to be more weeks to come for sure.
They're so athletic. You make one little gap mistake or one little wrong angle, it's a game over.
Yeah, for sure.
You can argue that kickoff return was game over. You take it and it's like that's all Boardman had left in the gas tank was that score to make it 20-14. Beaver local, they struggled on the road, 40-27. They get they actually at home. Sorry, Salem was on the road, 40-27. Salem gets the win over Beaver local, and Salem once again that we talked about this when we talked about Crestview. Salem kind of proved that their offense is still good, and Crestview's defense was just good last week.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at this game and how Beaver local performed. They didn't do terrible either in this game. I think they competed well against Salem, but Salem's offense just proved to be too much, too dynamic, and too versatile at times, and they were able to get some key points throughout the entire game, stay consistent through 4 quarters, and able to pull out the victory, too, and get themselves 1-1 on the season, or 2-0 on the season, excuse me.
Austin Klein, scored 4 touchdowns, so he's still kind of dazzling in his sophomore year of running the showdown in Beaver local. So he's all good, and like you said, there's a lot of positives to take away from Beaver local, that being one of them. But at the end of the day, Salem was just too much firepower.
And it's a 2-0 start for the Quakers too, and they're looking really good to start the season.
And this kind of, after week 1, people are like, well, is the offense going to be what it was? Can you replace Blaze X-Line? And I think this was a good week for Jackson Johnson to remind people like he's still an elite quarterback and he's going to be fine.
Yeah, he'll be fine this year. And I mean, Salem should be fine as well.
Ty, your game's next on the docket is Fitch got the win 38-14 over Canton McKinley. This was a close game last year, never close this year.
No, and I mean, Fitch didn't really even have to pass the ball. 4 passes from Deshaun on 4 completions. He got a touchdown through the air. He got a touchdown on the ground. Both Jamel James and DJ Williams were doing work, though, for Fitch, too, on the ground. And that really was the name of the game in this one. Canton McKinley really didn't have any answer defensively to the running game of Fitch. They were able to create so many holes. The offensive line really set the tempo. And Deshaun Vaughn looked really good in that quarterback position. He only really had to throw the ball, like I said, a handful of times, but the throws he made were all really good throws too, and he showcased the arm once during this game as well too. So I think when it comes down to it, you could definitely count on Deshaun to make those throws when needed, but they have a really good running game that they didn't really need to go to Deshaun much in this game too.
All that being said, Ty, they set the tone with a trick play to score their first touchdown in the game.
First play of the game, it went from Deshaun. It was like those college plays we said, Deshaun to Cam Smith, who unloaded for a touchdown to Jaden Ely.
And then for those of you that didn't see it, it was a wide receiver screen is what it looked like. But then instead of running with it, Cam Smith just took the ball.
Uncorked it. And then the next play, too, that was first play on offense for Fitch, scored a touchdown. They stopped it, got the ball back. Second play on offense, threw a screen pass to Dan Evans III, and then he took it to the house for a touchdown. So 2 offensive plays, 14 points.
That's how you set the tone.
And they absolutely did.
How about that? Like all the praise for their run game, which showed itself throughout the game. But your first 2 plays are a trick play that's a deep throw, and then a little wide receiver screen. So I think that's smart from TJ Parker because he probably came into this game knowing Canton McKinley was going to be dialed in on stopping the run, because what happened to them last year? They were dialed in on stopping Devin Sherwood, and then the run kind of burned them. So this year they were like, okay, we're not going to let the run beat us. First two plays were kind of pass plays that got them outside of the box, and it was 14-0 before you could blink.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Parker does a great job with that too. Always has a couple.
I called it, didn't I, though? I said Canton McKinley was going to be so focused on stopping the run, Fitch is going to bite him early with the pass.
And that was the only couple passes that they really pulled off the whole game. And then they started running it all over Canton McKinley. Deshaun Vaughn also had an interception too, defensively as well. So Deshaun Vaughn set the tempo everywhere.
This is what blows my mind. I am by no means a football coach or like someone that dives into football X's and O's. Like, I know enough. But if I can think of that, you'd think Canton McKinley would not go into that game thinking, well, we have to give everything the run game, and there's no chance that they're going to try to use that to our advantage early in the game. Like, there had to be something in their game plan that said, okay, we do have to stop the run because they burned us with it last year, but we can't just sell out and forget the fact that they can throw the ball. But they did.
I mean, you can't stop everything though, right? So you got to go in and game plan the best of your ability. But for every time like that, where there's an example of Canton McKinley going to stop the run, there's another team that's thinking too far ahead and say, maybe they're going to try to trick us out of the gate. Let's go for pass. And then they get run all over in the first.
Like early in the game like that, I would say like a base defense, right? So you can stop the run if they do it, but you're still not leaving yourselves. I don't know what they set up in. I didn't see that play. I didn't know if they brought people up at the first play of the game or if they were kind of playing a base defense. But I would kind of be in a base, and I would just say, we can stop the run. We have players down there that can stop the run, but we're not selling out to stop the run first play.
I think, honestly, it was the screen pass to Cam Smith that got the safeties and everything to sell out and move to one side of the field, and then it allowed Ely.
You don't expect a double throw the first game.
No one expected Cam Smith to unload, and I mean, he got a perfect pass off the middle of the field, and no one was was around it.
Your call said no one was expecting it, so
nobody expected it, and talk about jumping up early.
A faker.
Yeah.
It was a faker.
It was a faker. I mean, I really thought too. I mean, Cam Smith faked the run too initially when he went with it and just stepped back, popped it off, touchdown.
All right, our next game, Mineral Ridge. They looked impressive again. They have 2 straight wins of a lot of point differential there between the two. 48-6, they get the win over Orange. They are 2-0 on the season. And you look at this Rams kind of breakdown of how they scored. It was really balanced. I mean, Tristan Valley chipped in, Ian Erb chipped in. There were multiple players that kind of just did their job. There wasn't one giant monumentous game where someone went off for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. They just kind of each chipped in. Like, I think Erb had 130. Tristan Valley had like 139. So solid performances, but there are a lot of guys that do things good and not one guy that does things tremendous for Mineral Ridge right now.
I think for Mineral Ridge too, especially, they're looking at this conference and they're letting Lowville know. I know you're getting a lot of attention, but we're coming for that conference as well.
We talked to Coach Stainer not last year, but a couple weeks ago before the season. I think that I got this sense that they were disappointed in the way last year went. They thought they were a lot better than their record kind of said, and they kind of took that and they used that as fuel into this year. When I got done with that interview with him, and I don't know if you felt the same way, I was thinking to myself, Mineral Ridge might have something up their sleeve this year. And everyone might not think it because Mark Bunch left and he was a big part of their offense. But I'm thinking to myself, I think Mineral Ridge has this something up their sleeve. It sounded like it with Brian Shaner. First 2 weeks, definitely a lot of things up their sleeve.
Absolutely. And I mean, honestly, you look at the stats though from these guys, and you can't look further than Tristan Valley and what he's been able to do since he's gotten to Mineral Ridge too. This season already, he's already put up 299 yards of offense, 61% completion percentage, and he hasn't thrown an interception. He's doing what he needs to do behind center, but also 289 yards running the ball as well. 4 touchdowns on the ground for Valley. You got Herb that comes in with 251 yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground already in 2 weeks. Like 8 rushing touchdowns and over 250 yards already from Valley and Herb. Like they're already on their way to 1,000-yard season. Both.
Matt, I mean, if they have the double-headed monster like that, 2,000-yard rushers at the end of the season, that'd be incredible for Middle Ridge.
And one of them's your quarterback that can also service pretty well. That is also on pace for 1,000 yards with his arm too in Tristan Valley.
Oh, if he did 1,000 yards rushing and passing, and they had a 1,000-yard rusher behind them, and that'd be impressive.
They're on pace for it right now through 2 games.
Things will get harder as they go, but right now Mineral Ridge looks to stay the course. 48-6. Once again, they win over Orange. We go into Toronto. East Palestine lost 42-7 in Toronto to the Red Knights.
Respect to Toronto now after 2 consecutive victories in convincing fashion. That's a good football team over.
They're at the top of the UAC right now with 2-0 wins.
Yeah, they're doing a great job over there, and can't wait to see how they continue their play because they've looked dominant.
Toronto is, I know they're not a YSN school, but they are a football program that has been through a lot of tough adversity the last couple of years. I think that was one of the reasons why it was such a special moment last year when they played Lisbon, who was going through their own adversity. Toronto was the best program to play at that point because they had been through it, and they kind of put their arms around Lisbon. One of the greatest signs of sportsmanship I think we've seen since we started YSN was last year when Toronto played Lisbon. So got a lot of respect for that football program. They've been through a ton of adversity as a program, and I think they've come out the other end really, really good, and that's apparent.
Forgive me if I'm wrong too. Was Toronto split in when they were in the EOAC and when they weren't? Like I felt like certain.
I don't think they were ever in the EOAC. I don't think so.
I thought it was certain sports they were in it, but I know they always play the EOAC, so they might just be they're just an independent that kind of just plays the EOAC, kind of like what we see with Louisville doing with the federal.
I actually don't know if they're independent or if they have a conference.
Because for some reason I thought someone told me at one point they're in the conference for certain sports, and I thought it was just odd.
I mean, they might be in the conference for like a tennis or a.
Maybe that's what it was.
Changed that.
Yeah, that might have been what the case was for that.
I'm gonna go look up what they're. I want to say they're in a conference. Let's see. Football. They're in the Ohio Valley Conference.
Ohio Valley, okay. Because they always play a lot of EOAC teams. That's the only reason I ask about it.
Their conference has Clay, Battelle, Caldwell, Wheeling Central Catholic, not our Southern, but a Southern, Shenandoah, Bridgeport, Shadyside, and Catholic Central.
For some reason, I feel like it was a major sport, and I don't know where I saw it, but I felt like for basketball, it might have been that Toronto's in one of the conferences. I could be wrong on that though, but we'll have to check on it.
Another reason, they're in that they're in that OVAC kind of thing.
That's what it might have been. It might have been OVAC. You know what?
It gets kind of weird because Beaver Locals in the Buckeye, but they're also in the OVAC, so it's
it could have been that I was thinking. Maybe not EOAC. It might have been OVAC. You're right. It might.
Roseville's the same way where they're in the OVAC, but they're also in the EOAC.
So overall, too, I mean, just trying to lock down with that. But I mean, talking about that game, Toronto was definitely impressive in back-to-back weeks. They impressed once again. 2-0 start for them.
And once again, I have a ton of respect for that Toronto program and wish them the best of luck the rest of the season as long as they're not playing YSN schools. East Palestine will go to Camel next week. Actually, Chris Sigler comes in the clutch like he always does.
I knew he was. I was gonna say I'm waiting for Siggy to give me the answer.
You were right, Ty. Toronto was in the EOAC for 2 seasons, and baseball was one of the reasons they exited. Is what Chris Sigler says. So they were in the EOAC for 2 years.
I thought so. I thought they were in it or had a brief appearance in it. I try to keep track with everything as much as I can, but it's hard sometimes.
Good call, Ty.
But no,
like I said, East Palestine will host Campbell.
Both teams looking for their first win, and that's always exciting to know someone's getting win number 1 on the season next week.
Someone's going to get it, and it should be a pretty good game.
I'm always excited for them.
The early game in Friday ended up in a 42-14 win for South Range. You saw the play of the week. Everyone's seen it.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe the play of the year. It was such a – Shane Lindstrom's run down the sidelines off of an out route. He catches it. He gets undercut and then does a whole flip, lands on his feet, and keeps going. The only thing that would ever make that play better is if somehow he's able to break a tackle and go in for a touchdown. I mean, that would make that play from
he comes out of it, lands on his feet, stiff arms, goes to the house.
He would be superhuman if he did this, but if he was able to land and know he was going to land and immediately just keep running, then that would be touchdown. But it was still.
I guarantee you, he'll probably think he's landing it every time now.
It was an amazing play. Here's the sad thing: it was a penalty.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately,
and I was talking to my brother last night, and I was like, "How it like make this make sense?" The kid goes for a low tackle, for his legs. Shane Lindstrom started to jump, but then he got undercut and then flipped. But I was under the impression that you're allowed to hurdle someone that was going for a low tackle at you. And if you're not, then I'm sitting here thinking, shouldn't it be a 15-yard penalty on trying to tackle someone at the knees rather than trying to hurdle somebody? Or shouldn't that be offsetting penalties or something? Like, what is Shane Lindstrom supposed to do? Take one right to his knees?
It's tough. I do remember that rule being in effect and talking.
I get why it's there because you don't want people trying to hurdle people that are just kind of standing there, because we see that happen in college and pros, and kids inevitably try to prove that they can do that, and it's a recipe for disaster. But if someone's jumping right at your feet, you should be. I think you are. It's a judgment call, but I think you are allowed to jump them. And in that situation, it looked like the kid from university was coming low. Lindstrom tried to jump over him and then got undercut and flipped. I think the flip made the refs nervous and said, "Oh, that's a safety issue. We better pull the flag." But if you look at the play, it's like, what else is he supposed to do?
The fact that he stayed in bounds too with the flip was impressive to me. He stayed in bounds through it. The feet stayed.
I'm just impressed that he flipped, because it's hard to flip in pads. It's just there's a lot of weight on the upper body, so it's hard to keep that center. Boom. Boom, boom.
My boy does leg workouts though, man. He doesn't skip leg day. He's got a good center of gravity.
He had one of the plays of the year last year with his punt return that he broke 3 tackles for a touchdown, and now he has a play of the year again this year. Obviously there's a long season. We could see something miraculous in the next 8 weeks, but right now, play of the year, in my opinion, was the flip and run for Shane Lindstrom.
Nice, nice play too. And we still got 8 weeks left.
It happened to Cincinnati Bengal not too long ago, right? Where he flipped and then got into the end zone and landed on his feet.
So, yeah. Yep.
And he wasn't doing it for show. He actually flipped over a tackle, I think.
Yeah.
Remember Elway's helicopter spin in the Super Bowl?
Plenty of incredible feats of athleticism.
And in all those plays, no one got hurt, which is the most incredible thing, because sometimes those
Hi, everybody. DJ Yoakley with you. I just had a power outage here at HQ. Anthony's working to get back on, so hang on tight. I got some reverb going. So we had we got some severe weather here, and if you check out Storm Tracker 21, you might have some severe weather too. Anthony was knocked right off, and I think Ty's here, so let's bring Ty back in. What's up, Ty?
StreamYard just like yeeted me off of the stream completely. So I mean, we're back though. We're back.
Yeah, it was. We heard a bolt of lightning, or I guess we heard the thunder. We saw the lightning, and everything was out. It was like that. Yeah. It was fast.
Ann and I were actually talking about that Shane Lindstrom play. So you're the kind of perfect person to talk to. I mean, you saw it live, man. I mean, what kind of display of athleticism from that young man on the field?
Listen, I've never seen anything like that in all of my years. I heard Ant talking about Shane getting undercut. I thought that was the way it was too. After cutting the highlight, he did that all on his own. The kid came in low. Shane just like Ninja Turtled right over him, and it just kept on going. And I think I don't want to say it spooked him, but I think that it caught him by surprise that there was no contact as he went over top of a defender. It was incredible. It was the greatest thing I've ever seen, to the point where the referees didn't know what to do. So they just threw a flag and were like, I don't think you can do that.
Yeah, the fact that he kept his feet in bounds too. He was near the sideline, if I'm not wrong, too. He kept his feet in bounds throughout it.
I'm gonna see if I can pull it in so people can see it.
If you haven't seen this play, I mean, I know it's gotten thousands of views on our socials already, but it is definitely worth a watch. He is
pull it in. Hang on, Ty. Yeah, it's unbelievable, and people didn't know what to do about it. The other night, it was
Gary Nettle was talking about how everyone had their jaws dropped and everything. It was quite a sight to behold.
It truly was incredible. I've never seen anything like it. And probably won't see anything like it again for a long time, if ever. Let's see, I might have deleted it, so I'll just re-download it. It's that easy. We talk about this Mooney team a lot. Mooney showed up on Saturday night, Ty. They were balling out.
Ashton O'Brien has really, I think, come into his own, matured, and I think taken that quarterback role. After having that year of a little bit of seasoning too, hit last year, I think he's come in and really taken this role by storm, and he's really embraced the role he has now as one of the leaders. My man was figuring it out with the air raid too, but that trick play at the end too, the fake out, faked everybody out on that Mentor Lake Catholic defense, took it to the house and clinched the game. And all of a sudden, it kind of sets up some intrigue for this old West Side rivalry. We always knew Cheney Mooney back in the olden day, man. That's always the rivalry everyone looked at as well too. It's going to be renewed on Mineral Ridge on Friday night.
I'm really interested to see. Everybody knows about Cheney. What don't we know about Mooney that you learned on Saturday night?
I think their defense is legit now after 2 consecutive weeks of showing it. I mean, you talk about that second half shutout that they got against Mentor Lake Catholic. Mentor Lake Catholic started on the other side of the 50 in Mooney territory in their first 2 drives. Once on an interception by Mooney in the second half, and the second time on a punt return that got him in that territory. Mooney pushed him back, pushed him out of field goal range, and held him scoreless in that second half. I think this defensive battle is really going to be telling. And we've seen Cheney go up against teams like Boardman, like Poland, that we thought were good defensively before, and come out really strong looking. I'm curious to see if they're going to do it again going into this week.
It's going to be interesting, man. People are trying to count out Mooney. It's Mooney. You're going to hear about it. You're always going to hear Mooney versus Ursuline, and everybody's going to be kind of dependent on that. But I think Mooney can really make a statement here this week. I'm excited for that. What is he doing?
He got on it and he's going for the touchdown now. He started at the 10.
All right, you want to see the Shane Lindstrom?
Yeah, let's throw up the Shane Lindstrom for everyone.
All right, here we go.
A little bit of the precipitation, as they say on Storm Tracker 21, starting to come down. 4th and 4. Skirpak looking, firing, man wide open. It's Lindstrom, first down and more. Oh, he's on his feet! He's still stays on his feet.
Everybody here on this university school sideline, including myself, my jaw just dropped.
That was a goal.
All right, so I stand corrected. He got like a forearm shiver as Lindstrom was going over the top, but it was a new number. Who this? Like, he was gone right over the top. It was unbelievable.
He took his momentum right into his upper body and just carried him in a flip right over the dude. That was
and I talked to Shane a little bit on Saturday, and I told him, I said, we're going to try our damnedest to get that on SportsCenter. But we came up with the Shane Lindstrom nickname, and it's Linsanity. Because my man is, if you watch him play, anything can happen at any given moment. I love that he wears the Julian Edelman red gloves. Like, he embraces being Julian Edelman, and he wants that championship to go with it. And this season is going to be Linsane for South Range. It already has been, and it's only going to get better. Now, keep in mind, the part of that whole game that nobody's talking about is that Shane had 3 touchdowns in the first quarter. Nobody has said anything about that because they're talking about that flip. 3 touchdowns in the first quarter. And then the guy we're calling the E-Train now, Blake Ewert, he had 3 touchdowns to finish out the game. So you got 2 guys on that team with 3 touchdowns apiece in a university school that South Range was told might be their biggest competition all year.
Big literal too, because these receivers were like 6'5".
Cat was 6'5", and that's being favorable to to him being probably 6'6.5". I mean, he's pulling down one-handers in practice or in pregame. Just watching them warm up, you're like, oh boy, this could be a problem because our guys are not 6'5".
Their offense pretty much just throw the ball up and hope that someone gets it.
Well, Brady Crumbacher figured it out really quick. It was, okay, you're going to go after the ball. I'm going to go after your hands. Right. And as soon as the hands touch the ball, Crumbacher would knock it out. And it was, okay, we're not playing the man anymore. We're playing the ball. So it was genius. And again, I will argue this with anybody. Dan Yeagley and his staff are the best second half adjusters in the game. In the game.
They don't get to show it off too often because South Range usually doesn't have to make second half adjustments. But I think it was 21-14 at halftime.
It was tight. Yeah, it was 21-14, and I'm 90. I think I'm 100% sure on this that University got the ball back at halftime. So and South Range shut them out and actually doubled up their scores. So
you're in the locker room too. Just give us a quick preview, I guess, DJ. What are some things they're talking about with this last non-conference game before the opening of conference play starts?
I mean, people put too much into. I mean, conferences are great, right? Conferences. You want to win a conference, to say you had a successful season. The South Ranges, the Fitches, the Canfields of the world, they build this to test them for their conference schedule and for playoffs. Like, they want to know who they are going into conference, and then I don't want to say rework it or, reshape the wheel, but most of these schools are sitting there and they're building their non-conference schedule to test them. Brookfield. Like, why else would Brookfield schedule Ursuline if it's not because you think you're going to compete for a state title? Like, you're not gonna play that game if you're just looking to be quote unquote embarrassed. They don't care what the score is. They want to see how they stack up against a team that's 3 divisions above them. And South Range does that every week, and they're fortunate to do that every week in conference. So it's interesting. You look at some of these, and you can almost tell that athletic directors and coaches know who their team's going to be when they're playing down almost. You know what I mean? Like, they know that it might be a tough season or they might be a little bit low on the depth. So they want to kind of ease into that regular season or I guess conference schedule. Whereas some of these guys are just like, here, spaghetti, wall, let's go. Let's see how it goes.
And then they're locked into some of these games because it's they signed a schedule for a four-year deal, and it's like we were good for 2 of those years, but now we've lost a couple seniors, and maybe we can't compete with those next 2, so we're just going to go and try our best against this team.
I mean, most of these are going to be home and home. they're going to get 1-1. So, some teams might decide, hey, you're going to pay us to come here. So we'll lock in a two away. But the reality is, these coaches are more in tune with, how do I say this? Not like that. I got the Hartwig disease in here.
Yeah.
They're more in tune with who they are, more than they ever have been, right? So they know what they have coming back. They know what they have to attack. And they know what their weaknesses are. So into these non-conference battles, I think what we're seeing more and more is coaches and ADs pulling in teams that kind of help them in the long term as opposed to the short term. Like, you're not looking for cheap wins because you don't have to anymore to get in the playoffs. You're looking for teams that'll help you, maybe get to week 12, maybe get to week 13. Hell, if you can get to week 16, you're doing great, right? You're in the state championship. So that's why you see Warren JFK playing these other teams. That's why you see, like I said, Brookfield playing Ursuline. You see Springfield playing South Range. That's a natural rivalry. But they play it because you're playing up. You're playing up into your and testing your kids for what could be down the road. So big fan. I mean, you look at what all of our teams doing. Most of them are playing up, especially in the first 3 weeks.
There's going to be a lot of intrigue, too, in that conference. Ant and I keep talking. Girard might be that team that there's always one team that tries to, knock on the Raiders' door. And Girard looks like they might be that team. We saw Hubbard last year, Poland a couple years ago. Girard, they're looking good in that in the non-conference play before any 8 play opens up.
People are in love with Girard for good reason, but think about Jefferson. I mean, like, Jefferson hangs 55 the first week, right? And that NE8 just keeps getting better and better. And Jefferson, they're in their last year of the NE8, so I think they're just saying, hey, you know what? Chips on the table, cards on the table. Let's play. Let's see what happens. Because if we win it in our last year,
right?
No
one can knock us off.
Exactly. Yeah, they're the forever champion. It's like when somebody wins a title on Madden or retires champion. No, man, get back on the sticks. We want it back. So,
we talked to Coach Hanna like last week, and one of the things he said was last year the coaching staff believed that they could win in the NE8, but they needed the players to believe. And this year, he feels like they've turned that page where not only does the staff fully believe in their kids' abilities, but now he sees that belief and that work ethic in the kids now with one more year of experience under their belt.
It's easy when you got a 1,000-yard passer, 1,000-yard rusher, right? He's leading the way. Yeah, we could win this. Absolutely.
You get to see it too, DJ, every week too in the conference schedule. But Jefferson and Coach Hanna talked about they needed those players to adjust to NE8 style of play because, as you've seen too, from Ashtabula County to over here, especially NE8 style, it's a little bit different style of play. So they needed that kind of year to get the experience with those NE8 teams. They feel like they're ready going into this season.
So listen, everybody talks about South Range being, that Mahoning County team. They've got more ICL in them than they do NE8, and you see it each and every week. They can bang. They can absolutely go toe-to-toe, and people were worried about the line play coming into the season for South Range. They thought that was the way to get the Raiders down. Chris Colucci and his team have done a phenomenal job of taking that dig and putting that chip on their shoulder and taking a bite out of it every single Friday night. It's really been fun to watch because you can see the Raiders, no matter if they're outsized or not, are winning that line of scrimmage, and it's showing. The run game is there. The protection is there for Skurpak. I think he's only been sacked twice this year so far, and I think one of them probably could be summed up to a defensive coverage sack, where he had nobody to throw to. So it's really interesting to see. The NE8 has become, I think, one of the best conferences in all of Ohio. From my money, outside, the MAC out west that wins all the state championships. Now you got to give them some credit, right? But the NE8 is a conference where if you make it through, you're bloodied, you're battered, and you're ready certainly for playoffs if you're healthy.
The difference is that NE8 is only like 4 years old. So the MAC has had plenty of time to build the relationships, and they have kind of a coach's agreement with everyone because everyone kind of understands each other, knows each other, respects each other. You wait 10 years, maybe the NE8's like that, where all these coaches are familiar with each other enough to kind of build that bond and have that kind of gentleman's agreement or whatever it may be with
Now
the NEA.
listen, okay, all right. So I'm going to stop you right there because I'm tired. I'm tired of hearing this gentleman's agreement thing when they're not open enrollment schools. So if you're not an open enrollment school, the kid can't go from here to there unless they move. And the majority of them, I believe, are well, they're not going to move because they're all right next to each other, right? So why would you move from like one house, like 3 houses down?
We've seen it happen. Come on, kids find a way to move.
We have, but people want to talk about the coaches. Like the parents, the coaches have never been the problem. It's always been the parents. The parents are the ones that have to okay this before any coach can take a kid. So like we need to stop putting the fingers pointing at the coaches and start going, hey parents, if you don't want your kid to go somewhere, then don't let them go somewhere.
There's also an underlying story with the whole conference too that is going to be interesting. Who's going to join the NE8 is there going to be someone that joins the NE8? That's the other one too. I mean, we talk about Jefferson going for their last hurrah, and that's going to be certainly exciting when that happens, but there's a spot open, and I'm sure there's a lot of teams looking at it with a little bit of intrigue saying there's some competition there that we would like to get involved with.
So there have been multiple teams that have been invited to the NE8, and they have declined based on their current situation. Now, what I will tell you is there is one team that I, in my humble opinion, think it would be absolutely perfect for outside of a little bit of travel time for a couple of the teams, and that's Louisville. If Louisville was a member of the NE8, can you imagine having a D1 basketball team, a D3 football team, that these teams can gain points over if they, in fact, do win? And we saw Poland prove that point perfectly the other night, where Louisville was a heavy favorite going in. Poland says, you know what? People have been dogging us for a week because we lost that first week game, and they come in and they beat Louisville. And I'm not going to say handily, but guys, I mean, it was pretty convincing that Poland was the better team on the road on that given night. Why wouldn't Louisville want to play for a conference title? And talking to some of the people internally, they want to be a part of a conference. You know, they loved being part of the NBC. They were very, I would say, borderline dominant in the NBC before it became the EBC, which we know now. And I think Louisville, you know, it'd be tough for a Lakeview, it'd be tough for a Hubbard, you know, from a traveling standpoint. But the reality is they're traveling once. Louisville has to travel there twice, right? So you're going once to Lakeview, once to Hubbard, you know, some of the Girard, but with some of the other teams that they wanted in, and especially with Jefferson going out, I don't think it'd be that different from that scenario. And you're getting a team from Stark County, which would already give you some hype up for what you're doing in football season, especially.
And Louisville's that team that plays those Federal League teams. They step up to the plate all the time. So, I mean,
because they have to. They have to do it because they're independent.
Exactly.
It's not that they want to do it. It's that they have to do it.
I would be curious to see. I would assume they would still bring some of those teams in the schedule though for non-conference though, just because they're familiar with those Federal League.
There's a team in purple they don't appreciate very much over there.
I'm sure there is too. I'm sure. No, it's going to be exciting. I think D3 overall is going to be a gauntlet this season. So fun in our region. I can't wait until we get through this season. Some of the matchups too this year in D3 are insane. So it's going to be a fun football season. And I mean, we're only going into week 3. I can't believe we're already into week 3, but 2 weeks under our belt, boys.
It flies, dude. I mean, I told Anthony before week 1 started, I said, I guess I'll see you in Christmas when we all kind of wake up from our blackout.
It'll be here before we know it, and I'm sure we'll be talking about the next season, but enjoy it while it's here, right? Let's enjoy it while it's here.
We're going to try, baby.
Great episode.
We're going to get out of here. We'll be back. Me and DJ will be back tomorrow. We have Drew DeShields coming on at noon. That'll be a great conversation with Drew. One of the flagship quarterbacks of the area,
the Tom Brady of our area.
He wears the 12. He fits right into it. And then we'll also have a couple other volleyball interviews to share with you guys that we've compelled over the weekend for tomorrow's show. Also, we'll have to talk about the new round of Big Dogs, the Big Dog winners that are going to come out later today as well. So we're going to have a lot to talk about tomorrow with me and DJ on Running Point.
I'm working on the graphics right now. You'll know in about an hour who those winners are. One of them. It was by less than 100 votes, and that makes me smile because every vote counts.
Yeah,
it's huge.
a lot of times it doesn't feel that way, but then like weeks like today, you're like literally every vote is an account.
Dude, I mean, the boys was a blowout. I'm gonna let you know that the boys was a blowout. I'm a little bit disappointed in some of the show ups from the communities, but the girls was awesome. The turnout was amazing. Both I think were 37,000 each for boys and girls, which is, I mean, that's always a good turnout. But man, at the end of the day, the girl that won, I'm so excited for. But the girl that lost by less than 100, you're like, oh man, come on.
It's always fun too. I love seeing those fans get involved. They'll have another opportunity next week as well. Well, this week.
Yeah. Casual sports coming up next. Power Hour with DJ and the boys will get you loaded at 3 to 4. Got a bunch of volleyball and I believe a couple of soccer games on the network. Check out ysnlive.com/live to get all the games that you want to watch for free on the network tonight. And we'll see you all tomorrow from 12 to 2 on Running Point.
Bye.